December 1939. The frozen forests of eastern Finland. Soviet forces have invaded with 750,000 soldiers, 6,000 tanks, and 3,800 aircraft. Finland has 300,000 soldiers, 30 tanks, and 130 aircraft. The math says Finland will be destroyed in weeks. The Soviets do not know about the farmer in Karelia, who has been hunting in these woods since childhood. They do not know about Simo Häyhä, a 34-year-old man who stands 5 feet 3 inches tall and who speaks maybe 20 words per day. They will learn. Over the next 100 days, Häyhä will kill 542 Soviet soldiers. He will do this using iron sights, because scopes fog up in Finnish winter. He will do this in temperatures that drop to -40 degrees Celsius. He will do this while Soviet forces dedicate entire artillery batteries to killing him specifically. The Soviets will call him the White Death. They will send counter-snipers to hunt him. They will send entire companies to sweep the forests where he operates. None of it will work. And when a Soviet bullet finally hits him in the face on March 6, 1940, destroying half his jaw, Simo Häyhä will not die. He will wake up from a coma on the same day Finland signs the peace treaty. This is not the story of a professional soldier. This is the story of a farmer who became the deadliest sniper in history. The problem facing Finland in 1939 was existential. The Soviet Union demanded territory. Finland refused. On November 30th, 1939, Soviet forces invaded across the entire eastern border. Stalin believed Finland would surrender within weeks. He believed Soviet military superiority would crush Finnish resistance. He was catastrophically wrong about both assumptions. Finland's advantage was not equipment or numbers. Finland's advantage was terrain and temperature. The eastern border was covered in dense forest and frozen lakes. Roads were few, and visibility was limited. The winter cold dropped low enough to kill exposed soldiers in minutes. Finnish forces knew this landscape. They had trained in these conditions their entire lives. Soviet forces were mostly from southern regions. They had never experienced Finnish winter. They wore uniforms designed for European combat, not Arctic warfare. When the invasion began, Finnish forces adopted a strategy called Matti tactics. Small groups of Finnish soldiers would ambush Soviet columns, cut them off from supply lines, and destroy them through harassment and sniper fire. This strategy required soldiers who could operate independently in extreme cold, who could survive for days in the forest, and who could kill Soviet soldiers without being detected. Finland needed snipers who could turn the forest into a killing ground. Simo Häyhä was exactly what they needed. Häyhä's background was simple. He was born in 1905 in the municipality of Rautjärvi in eastern Finland. He worked as a farmer. He hunted to supplement his family's food supply. He had been shooting since childhood. By age 17, he was competing in shooting competitions. He joined the Finnish Civil Guard, a volunteer militia, and trained with the Suomi submachine gun and the Mosin Nagant rifle. When the Soviet Union invaded, Häyhä reported to his unit immediately. His commanding officers looked at him and saw a short, quiet farmer who was 34 years old and past prime military age. They assigned him to a reconnaissance company operating near the border town of Kola. They expected him to patrol and report Soviet movements. Häyhä had different plans. On his first day of combat, he killed 25 Soviet soldiers. His officers realized they had found something unusual. Häyhä's technique was built on principles that contradicted standard military sniper doctrine. Most snipers use scoped rifles for long-range precision. Häyhä refused to use a scope. His reasoning was practical. Scopes fog up in extreme cold. A lens glint can reveal your position. A scope also adds height to your shooting position, making you more visible. Häyhä used iron sights on a Finnish M28-30 rifle. This limited his effective range to approximately 500 meters. But in dense Finnish forest, most engagements happened at 150 to 400 meters anyway. At those ranges, iron sights were sufficient, and iron sights never fogged up. Häyhä's second tactical choice was even more unusual. He kept snow in his mouth while shooting. The reason was simple. In temperatures of -40 degrees, your breath creates a visible cloud of vapor. That cloud reveals your position. Snow in the mouth eliminated the vapor cloud. It was agonizingly uncomfortable. Häyhä did it anyway. Häyhä's shooting position selection followed rules he had learned hunting. He never shot from the same position twice. He would arrive at a position before dawn, prepare multiple firing lanes, and wait. Soviet forces advanced along predictable routes. Häyhä would engage from one position, kill several soldiers, then relocate before Soviet forces could return fire. He moved through the forest without sound. He wore pure white camouflage that made him invisible against the snow. Soviet soldiers died without ever seeing the shooter. The Soviets started calling areas where their soldiers died mysteriously the White Death Zones. They did not know the White Death was a single man. When Soviet intelligence finally identified Häyhä as the source of massive casualties, they dedicated resources to killing him specifically. Counter-snipers were sent to hunt him. Artillery strikes were called on areas where he operated. Entire infantry companies were deployed to sweep forests where he was believed to be hiding. None of these measures worked. Häyhä killed the counter-snipers. He was gone before the artillery hit. He watched Soviet sweep operations from positions they never checked. What Simo Häyhä achieved seems impossible. 542 confirmed sniper kills and approximately 200 additional kills with a submachine gun. That adds up to roughly 740 Soviet soldiers killed by one man. The math works out to 5.4 sniper kills per day over 100 consecutive days, in temperatures ranging from -20 to -40 degrees Celsius, while he was being actively hunted by Soviet forces. The Soviet response became increasingly desperate. They sent snipers at night, and Häyhä killed them. They tried to overwhelm his positions with infantry, and Häyhä relocated before they arrived. They used artillery bombardment, but he was never where they thought. Soviet officers told soldiers that the White Death was supernatural, and that bullets could not kill him. These claims were psychological defense mechanisms. It was easier to tell themselves he was supernatural than to admit the truth, that he was simply better than them. But Häyhä's tactics had one vulnerability. To achieve his kill count, he had to remain in forward positions where Soviet forces operated in large numbers. The more he killed, the more resources they dedicated to finding him. Eventually, odds would catch up. On March 6, 1940, Häyhä was in position near Kola. He had killed 542 Soviet soldiers. They had moved additional snipers and spotters forward. At approximately 11 in the morning, a Soviet soldier spotted him. The soldier fired. An explosive bullet hit Häyhä in the left side of his face. The impact destroyed his jaw, several teeth, and part of his cheek. His fellow soldiers found him unconscious and covered in blood. They assumed he was dead. His face was unrecognizable. They evacuated him anyway. Häyhä woke up in a field hospital 11 days later. Half his jaw was gone. He could not speak, but he was alive. The timing of Häyhä's wounding was darkly ironic. He woke up from his coma on March 13, 1940. That was the same day Finland signed the Moscow Peace Treaty, ending the Winter War. Finland had survived. The Soviet Union had failed to conquer Finland in the quick victory Stalin expected. Soviet casualties were catastrophic. Estimates range from 126,000 to 167,000 Soviet soldiers killed. Finnish casualties were approximately 26,000. The The Soviets had brought 750,000 soldiers, thousands of tanks, and thousands of aircraft. They had failed to defeat a nation of 3.7 million people. Simo Häyhä had personally killed 542 of them. When Häyhä recovered enough to understand what had happened, he asked one question: did we win? The answer was complicated. Finland had not lost. Finland had preserved its independence. But Finland had been forced to cede territory. Häyhä considered this acceptable. He returned to farming. The question that military historians ask most often is simple. How did one man kill 542 enemy soldiers in 100 days? The answer is a combination of skill, terrain, and enemy incompetence. Häyhä had spent 26 years hunting in Finnish forests. He knew the terrain better than Soviet officers knew their maps. He knew how to move silently, how to select positions, how to read weather and wind. Soviet forces were operating in unfamiliar terrain in extreme conditions. They wore dark uniforms that stood out against snow. They moved in predictable formations along obvious routes. They did not have soldiers who understood winter warfare. Häyhä exploited every tactical advantage he had. But there was also an element of single-minded focus that most soldiers do not possess. Häyhä did not think about fear. He did not think about the odds. He woke up, went to his position, and killed Soviets until dark. Then he returned to camp, ate, slept, and repeated the process the next day, for 100 consecutive days. But there was a cost that Simo Häyhä never discussed. The wound left him disfigured for life. Reconstructive surgery restored some function, but his face never looked the same. He spoke with difficulty, eating was painful. He lived with constant nerve damage pain. Häyhä never married. He returned to farming and lived in isolation. When journalists asked about his kills, he would say, "I did what I was told to do as well as I could." When asked how he became the deadliest sniper, he said, "Practice." He refused to elaborate. The Finnish government promoted him from corporal to second lieutenant, the only battlefield promotion in Finnish military history. He received multiple decorations but avoided ceremonies. Simo Häyhä died on April 1st, 2002, at age 96. He had survived a bullet to the face that should have killed him. He survived the Winter War, the Continuation War, and the Cold War while living near the Soviet border. He died of natural causes in a veterans' nursing home. His funeral was attended by hundreds of Finnish veterans and military officials. The Finnish Defense Forces honored him as the greatest soldier Finland ever produced. His grave in Ruokolahti is visited by military enthusiasts worldwide. Visitors struggle to reconcile the quiet farmer with the sniper who killed 542 Soviet soldiers. But Häyhä would have seen no contradiction. He had defended his homeland. That was all that mattered. A comparison with other snipers helps tell Häyhä's story. Soviet sniper Lyudmila Pavlichenko killed 309 over 2.5 years. American Chris Kyle killed 160 over multiple deployments. Canadian Francis Pegah Magabo killed 378 in World War I. Simo Häyhä killed 542 in 100 days without a scope, in temperatures that would kill most people, while hunted by an army of 750,000. In sniper warfare arithmetic, Häyhä is in a category no one has reached. There was one limitation. His tactics required accepting risks that eventually got him shot. Operating forward every day for 100 days meant eventually a Soviet would get lucky. The bullet that hit him was probably random fire from a soldier who got one glimpse. That is how most snipers die. Not from enemy snipers, but random fire from soldiers who happened to look in the right direction. Häyhä lived 62 years after the Winter War. He never fired a rifle in anger again. He hunted occasionally but said the enjoyment was gone. The war had taken something that never returned. He lived alone. He avoided attention. When asked about the White Death legend, he changed the subject. The man who had been the most lethal individual soldier in modern warfare spent more than half a century trying to forget what he had done. That was the cost of becoming a legend. Simo Häyhä killed 542 Soviet soldiers to defend Finland. Finland survived. Häyhä survived. But the quiet farmer who went to war never came home. The man who returned was someone different, someone haunted. That was Finnish determination. That was Simo Häyhä.